Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about falling cross and some of the ways that we can relate it to other techniques in the American Kenpo system. Now keep in mind that this is not designed to be a full comprehensive list or family groupings, but rather different avenues that we can take to explore and understand the American Kenpo system a little bit better. So let's start out with a concept, purposeful versus compelled. So remember, there are two reasons why we do anything. We want to, being purposeful, or we have to, being compelled. So let's see how that fits into this technique. So we're dealing with an applied major from the rear, in this case a two-handed choke, but it's static. Notice that they're not pulling or pushing us in any way, shape, or form. So we can choose what we want to do from this position. In this case, we're going to choose to step to the left and start trying to create that angle of disturbance. So as we begin to do the technique, if I notice that I've created an angle of disturbance and my opponent's up on his tippy toes, I can purposely choose to continue to step forward and do something like a falling cross. But now let's assume we do the same exact thing and we step to the left and I don't feel comfortable enough that I've effectively done what I wanted. So now we're going to purposely choose to go backwards so we can start affecting that angle of disturbance quicker rather than later. And this would give us something like a cross of destruction. But now let's assume that the attack has changed. They're no longer being static. Now he's pushing me forward as he's applying the choke. Well, I would now be compelled to do something like a circling wing by stepping forward and going with the push. But let's do the opposite. What if he was pulling me back rather than pushing? Well, again, we would be compelled to step back. And in this case, this would give us something like a twirling wing. So now that we related it through the purposeful versus compelled, let's look at this from a completely, totally different perspective. In this case, flipping the roles. We're going to look at it from a second person's perspective rather than first. So in this case, we're going to switch roles. I am now the second person. I am the attacker, and he will be the defender. But we're going to look at the attack. In this case, that applied major. So let's start out with falling cross. What are we doing? This is a long-range, two-handed choke from the rear. So let's do an opposite. Let's do a short range, one hand rather than two, and move on to something like escape from death. But I don't have to stay behind him. I could also move to the side and do something like a grip of death, or even something like a grasp of death. But just like I can move from the back to the side, I could also move to the front. And sticking to the short range, we could do something like a locking horns, or going back to the long range in the original attack, but doing it from the front, get something like a destructive twins. Now, the interesting thing to keep in mind here, even though we have switched perspectives from first to second, we can still use all the techniques we did in the first relationship to this concept. So for instance, again, starting out with falling cross, then we can move on to cross of destruction, circling wing, and even twirling wings. So the way in which we just related falling cross to other techniques in the American Kenpo system was through the second person perspective, in this case the applied majors, and through the concept of purposeful versus compelled. We hope this video helps you understand the American Kenpo system a little bit better. Thank you very much.